Hey, welcome to day 6 of the 26 by 26 challenge. Today we're going to cover verses 19, 20, and 21 in the book of James. Now, these 3 verses are difficult. They're not easy, especially for me, okay? So if you find them difficult, you're in good company because I find them difficult too. So, got my narrow gate Bible. I am going to open it up to James chapter 1. I'm going to read them for you. And when I read these verses, you're immediately going to be like, oh, yep, that's true. That I can see how that might be a problem for someone with a personality like mine, right? This is what the Bible says. He says, "My dear brothers and sisters, understand this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger." See what I mean? For human anger does not accomplish God's righteousness. Therefore, ridding yourselves of all moral filth and the evil that is so prevalent, humbly receive the implanted word which is able to save your souls. All right, let me break this down for you. I love this passage, but it's difficult because it's tough. It's tough to apply. It's tough to put into practice. But I'm going to tell you what, everybody around you, including you in the long run, will be happier when you put this into practice, and you will become a better human. You'll become a better spouse. You'll become a better parent. You'll become a better employer, a better employee, a better citizen. You name it. You're going to be better in all areas if you put these things in to practice. Now, he is kind of transitioning topic here a little bit. So we've been talking about trials, and yeah, you can put that in that context, and certainly there's some points we'll tie back to that. However, he's now starting to continue the conversation and transition it a little bit here. And so, and even noting that, depending on the translation of Bible you have, you may even see a new heading that shows up there as you begin these 3 verses. And so let's break it apart phrase by phrase. Here's what it says. It says, "My dear brothers and sisters, understand this." Now, notice this. It is a term of endearment. My dear brothers and sisters, right? It's almost like you being like, your child comes to you and they're trying to say something, and you see something they don't see. So you say, "My dear, listen," right? So like it's a term of endearment to draw them close to you. That's what you're hearing him say when he says that, "My dear brothers and sisters," right? He's prepping them. In the South, where I grew up, we would say, "Bless his heart," and then you would say something about them that's a hard truth, right? Well, bless their heart, da 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 da. Or you would say it and follow it up with, "Well, bless her heart," right? You say something bad, bless her heart. As if it makes it okay. And this term of endearment he's using to bring the reader in. And again, we know who the reader is, and he says, "My dear brothers and sisters." Now, when we say that and we think of that in like church terms, it's different than the way that they saw it, right? This is his community, right? He is Jewish by heritage, by culture, by ethnicity. And so the people that he was with, the people he grew up with, the people who are now carrying this message, these are the people that he did life with. So when he says, "My dear brothers and sisters," now that they're scattered abroad, he literally means my tribe, my people. Hey, my community, listen, draw in, I've got something to say. And so he says this, he says, "Understand this." In other words, listen to what I'm about to say, because what I'm about to say is very important. He draws them in with a term of endearment, and then he says, "I need you to listen." Right? It's as if you're in a sermon and you've heard a preacher say, now, if you don't listen to anything else I've said, listen to this. Right? Make sure you hear this. And that's kind of what James is saying here. And he says, "My dear brothers and sisters, understand this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger." I mean, we could camp out for 26 days on that alone and just break it down and keep going at it. And we might still not get it right at the end of 26 days of trying to practice that. You know what I mean? And I want to actually take these and break down each part of that with you, right? So let's go ahead and start with the first part. It says, everyone, right? Everyone should be these things. Now, The Bible in the New Testament was written in Koine Greek. It's a dead language. You can study it. I've studied it. And this word is so rich here. Do you know what it means when it says everyone? It means everyone. It means you. It means me. It means this is good for all breathing humans, right? Everyone should be, here are the things. You ready? 3 things. Quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. Quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. It's almost like listen, speak, and then anger might be an emotion, but it might be an action, right? How we interpret the information that we've received. Notice that God gave you 2 ears and He gave you 1 mouth. I use it in the opposite form. I speak as if I have 2 mouths, and I listen as if I have 1 or sometimes no ears at all. If you don't believe me, ask Andrea. She'll confirm. Ask my kids. They'll confirm. Ask anyone that knows me. They'll confirm. How about you? You might be an introvert, and so you might tend to listen more than you speak. However, it's still a push to listen first, speak second, be quick to listen. What I have found is that when people do think I'm listening, I have caught myself simply thinking of what I'm going to respond, what I'm going to say next, not really engaging and listening to what that person's actually saying. Can't you tell when people do that? Isn't that annoying? I'm sorry if I annoy you, if you've been in a conversation with me and I've done that. Be quick to listen. Quick to listen. Understand someone else. What if the goal in a conversation was for you to understand what that person's saying, but also in doing so, understanding who they are, discovering the image of God in them? What if you found the gold in them because you listened first? You were quick to listen, slow to speak. That doesn't mean you speak slow. That doesn't mean you are slow. That means that you listen before you speak. Maybe you think before you speak. When you fully listen, you provide yourself the space to speak in a way that is ministering to the other person. A lot of times we speak and we end up ministering to ourselves. We like to listen to ourselves speak, and it becomes this own little cycle where this is what we're listening to, and we listen to ourselves as opposed to listening, understanding someone else, being quick to listen, and then slow to speak. In other words, waiting. And in wisdom that we've already prayed for, remember in James beginning, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God. That wisdom allows us then to speak because we've listened first. So be quick to listen, be slow to speak. You don't always have to have the right words to say. Sometimes listening is all you need to do. But then when you speak, speak after having listened so that now you know that person and you have their best interest at heart, not your own. Not what makes you comfortable, but what's best, the truth in love to them. Quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. Now, I get I get defensive quite easily. And that's not on anybody else. It's not on the way they said it. It's not how they said it, what they said, anything like that. It has to do with me. And if that's true, and I know it is because I have some work to do on me, this is something I am currently working on, how to be less defensive, more thoughtful, realizing it's not about me. Here's what you realize is that if someone else is kind of spitting back anger at you, it's not really about you. It's about them. So don't take it personally. Don't allow that to shape you. And don't allow that to form you, because it really is more about them than it is you. Slow to anger. I need to be slow to defensiveness. What they're saying isn't about me. I tell this to my daughter all the time. My middle child, sweet girl, Aisley, she says to me all the time, "Do you think people will notice the stain on my shirt? Like, can you get this off? Will people see it? Do you think people can see it? Can they know it? Will everyone see this?" And I think I did that to her, right? Like my OCD-ness of like everything is looking proper on your from head to toe. And so because of that, I think I've created this in her. But what I tell her every single time is, Aisley, no one is going to notice that on your shirt because they're thinking the same thing you are, and they're trying to see if anyone else will notice the stain on their shirt. They're so consumed with themselves walking into the room that they didn't see your flaw. They just wanted to make sure that no one else saw their flaw. And in that same way, when someone is defensive to you or offended by you, it's not really about you. They insulate their own insecurities with sometimes insult or defensiveness or being offended. It's not about you. And sometimes we think it is, and so we take it so personal, and then we get wrapped up in our own selves in doing so. Be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. Take a breath before you respond. That is a great practice. When something causes you stress, causes you anxiety, causes you anger, and you can feel that on the inside, take a breath. You need to take three? Take three. You need to count to 10? Count to 10. You know what we practice around here? I'm going to need a minute. Take your minute. It is better to wait and respond rightly than it is to take action and respond unrighteously. In fact, that takes us right into the next phrase. Be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. Why? For human anger, not godly anger, human anger. Human anger does not accomplish God's righteousness. Be angry and sin not, right? We've all heard that phrase. We've seen it. We've seen Jesus go into the temple, overturn tables in righteous anger, godly anger. This is human anger. Human anger cannot accomplish God's righteousness. And he almost goes back to that slow to speak thing, at least in my mind. And the reason I think that is because, well, they're all tied together. But let me explain something, and I know you know this, but I want you to put it into practice and really think about it. It's not just about what you say. What you say is just as important as how you say what you say. How you say what you say really determines how what you say is received. And when you say it matters too. It's not about what you say only. It's also about how you say what you say and when you say what you say. I'm going to say the same thing in two different ways. And I want you to think about which one is received more. What are you doing? You feel that? Feels like I have a little bit of human anger, right? I can't accomplish God's righteousness in that. I'm going to say the same thing a different way. What are you doing? It's welcoming. It's warm. It's a genuine question. I'm curious as to what you're doing. I'm not angry. I said the same exact words. It's not about the words you say only. It's about how you say what you say. You can say it in frustration. You can say it in kindness. How you say what you say is just as important as what you say. And when you say, timing matters, y'all. Timing matters. There's an appropriate time for that joke. There's an appropriate time for that comment. It's not so that you get seen. It's always so that you can lift someone else up. And then he goes on, he says, therefore, so because of all that, keeping all that in mind, ridding yourselves of all moral filth and the evil that is so prevalent. We're going to stop right there because then he goes on. I'm going to stop and I want to explain that real quick. Therefore, ridding yourselves of all moral filth and the evil that is so prevalent, as if that's the passing, as if that's the assumption. I'm not so sure that's the assumption in our culture anymore, even for Christians, followers of Jesus. But that's who we want to be, unreasonably committed followers of Jesus, right? So we rid ourselves of all moral filth and the evil that is so prevalent. Now, remember, he says, therefore. And whenever you see therefore in scripture, you got to look at what it's there for. So you stop, you go back, context, what's he talking about? Well, he's talking about being slow to speak and quick to listen and slow to anger. Tie all that up. What is that in a nutshell? Selfishness, if you do the opposite. So ridding yourselves of all moral filth and the evil that is so prevalent. You can really say, like what Jesus said, love God, love your neighbor, and that'll all take care of itself. Don't be selfish. Life is not about you. And if you could and I could both understand that life is not about us, that faith is not about us, that this moment is not about us, then we have our focus set in order to be able to minister, in order to be able to walk as Jesus walked and do as Jesus did. Quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. Selflessness. We decrease so that he can increase. Putting others above yourselves, right? We could go on quoting all these different scriptures. And as if like that's what we're doing, that's the assumption. We're ridding ourselves of moral filth and the evil that is so prevalent. Doing that, humbly receive the implanted word which is able to save your souls. Again, he goes back to that word. Remember, he says it in the verses prior. It says by his own choice in verse 18, he gave us birth by the word of truth so that we can be kind of a first fruits of his creatures. Remember that same word? It says that implanted word which is able to save your souls. The truth that was given to us, Jesus in flesh, the word made flesh that's able to save our souls. The truth, following his example, that implanted word. Who he is in us that's able to save our souls. Following the truth. What is the truth? That we should do as Jesus did. Follow in his footsteps, unreasonably committed to him and his ways. Not just him, like we're committed to him in theory or him as a person. If you are an unreasonably committed follower of Jesus, you do as he did. You live as he lived. You walk as he walked. You talk as he talked. You serve as he served. You look for the needy. You look for the need and you fill it. Why? Because God put you there to do so. He gave you eyes to see the need, eyes to feel the hurt, arms to wrap around for comfort those who are hurting. That's why you're there. And in doing so, you live selflessly, which means that you will be one who is quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. And instead of not accomplishing God's righteousness because of human anger, you will be accomplishing his righteousness in human joy. Why? Because you're an unreasonably committed follower of Jesus who is living selflessly in the world around you. That's your challenge today. Anytime you start thinking of you, turn it on someone else. Listen today. Listen in conversations before you speak. Take a breath before you respond and watch what Jesus will do in that relationship, in that conversation. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.